In 1890, William James wrote a sentence that has become one of the most quoted in all of psychology. The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention, over and over again, is the very root of judgment, character, and will. He then added, an education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. And then, with characteristic honesty, he confessed, but it is easier to define this ideal than to give practical direction for bringing it about. Over a century later, we have the practical direction. It is called mindfulness meditation. And the remarkable thing is that James described the mechanism with such precision that reading him today feels less like reading history and more like reading a preview of discoveries that would not be made until decades after his death. James devoted a major chapter of the principles of psychology to the analysis of attention, which he considered perhaps the most important psychological faculty of all. He distinguished between voluntary attention, which is effortful and willed, and involuntary attention, which is captured automatically by interest, novelty, or biological relevance. And he observed something crucial. Voluntary attention is extremely limited. It cannot sustain itself on an object for more than a few seconds without support from interest. The moment something becomes boring, voluntary attention begins to drift, and only the most disciplined minds can repeatedly drag it back. This is precisely what happens in mindfulness meditation. The practitioner focuses on a simple object, usually the breath, and when attention wanders, which it inevitably does, they notice the wandering and gently return attention to the object. That returning, practiced thousands of times over weeks, months, and years, is the core of the training. James described this return as the most valuable mental exercise imaginable. Why? Because the ability to return attention voluntarily is the foundation of every cognitive and emotional capacity we value. The ability to stay focused on a task despite distraction. The ability to notice when a thought or emotion is pulling you off course and choose a different response. The ability to be present in a conversation rather than lost in your own narrative. The ability to choose, moment by moment, where your mind goes rather than being dragged by whatever happens to be loudest. James would have understood immediately why mindfulness training produces the effects that modern research documents. Studies consistently show that regular meditation practice increases gray matter density in areas of the prefrontal cortex associated with executive control, reduces amygdala reactivity to emotional stimuli, strengthens functional connectivity between brain regions involved in attention regulation, and reduces activity in the default mode network, the brain's self-referential chatter that underlies mind wandering. From James's perspective, these are the neurological signatures of exactly the improvement he was describing. A mind that is more able to direct its attention voluntarily, less buffeted by automatic associations and emotional reactions, more able to return to its intended focus after being pulled away. The practice is training the capacity James considered most fundamental to human flourishing. James was also remarkably clear-eyed about why this training is so difficult. He observed that the stream of consciousness has a tremendous momentum. It flows always toward the most interesting, the most urgent, the most emotionally salient content available. To direct it away from these natural attractors toward a chosen object requires energy and persistence. This is why people find meditation difficult at first. They are not doing it wrong. They are encountering the natural dynamics of consciousness, which did not evolve to stay focused on one thing when more interesting things are available. But James's insight about the relationship between interest and attention also contains important wisdom for meditators. He observed that the most sustained attention is generated not by pure effortful will but by finding genuine interest in the object of attention. The meditator who approaches the breath with genuine curiosity, who is actually interested in the sensations, the rhythms, the subtle variations of each breath, will sustain attention far more effectively than the one who is simply trying to hold attention in place by sheer force. This is why experienced meditation teachers often encourage practitioners to approach their experience with curiosity and openness rather than grim determination. James would approve of this advice completely. Will alone cannot sustain attention for long. Interest can sustain it indefinitely. There is also a deeper Jamesian dimension to mindfulness practice. His concept of pure experience, consciousness before categories, aligns precisely with what contemplative practitioners call bare awareness, a mode of experience in which the relentless labeling and evaluating activity of the mind is temporarily quieted, and experience is encountered more directly, without the usual interpretive overlay. Many long-term meditators report that this quality of experience is both more vivid and more peaceful than ordinary conceptual consciousness. James wanted to improve this faculty, to find practical methods for developing the most important mental skill he had identified. Mindfulness meditation, refined over millennia in contemplative traditions and now validated by modern neuroscience, is exactly what he was looking for. He would have been delighted, and not at all surprised. If the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern science fascinates you, subscribe to The Psychology of William James. There is much more to explore at the frontier where psychology, philosophy, and practice meet.